Hey guys, and welcome to Money Talks News, the podcast. It's a podcast that makes you richer one day at a time. I'm your host, Stacy Johnson. Also with me is producer Aaron Freeman. Hey, Aaron.
This podcast, I hope it makes me richer. Let's talk about this.
Everything we do is going to make you richer, Aaron. Just being on this podcast with you is making you richer.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I'm paying you.
That's right. Very true.
So now we're going to talk today. The topic today is 5 reasons you should be investing in AI and 5 ways you can do it. So here, let me ask you this first.
It is the hot topic of the past couple of years.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. First question, Aaron. Do you use AI at work?
I do. Every day I use AI.
Cool.
Yep.
I do too. I use AI a lot. What do you use it for?
Well, for us, we are building videos. So we are summarizing news of the day and basically squeezing those down into like little minute videos. So it's a big complicated topic. We're using AI to kind of, 5th grade level, bring that down so everybody can quickly get an understanding of what's going on for the news of the day.
Makes sense. That's basically what I do too. I use AI to generate ideas. In fact, I use AI to generate the outline for this podcast.
Exactly.
So I find it makes me much more productive. Do you think it's a paradigm shift? Do you think it's as important, Aaron, as the invention of the internet or electricity or the steam engine? I mean, do you think this is a giant shift in humanity?
I think so. I think it's twofold, though. One is somebody put it better. They said it's like the steam engine did for labor. Everybody was doing everything with horses and by hand and hand tools and everything. All of a sudden, the steam engine comes along, and all of a sudden, boom, that took care of a hell of a lot of labor problems. And they said AI will be that for intellectual labor. Right, just like what you just cited, like you could have sat down and spent an hour trying to figure out an outline. You could have done the same thing, except AI spit it out in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
You just pose the question. This is what I wanted to do. Now, the opposite side of that is everybody's worried about that this could be a dumbification of America. Now, if we're not the ones sitting down thinking about this outline and putting it together in our heads, and AI is doing it for us, are we getting smarter? Or are we getting dumber?
Well, that makes sense. Well, kind of like, okay, spell check. In your computer, all of a sudden now you don't know how to spell. I mean, you don't have to know how to spell words.
Right.
I mean, it is a productivity, but it does cause you to lose some of the skills that you had before. Calculators. I mean, I can remember a time when there was no calculators, when you had to actually do long division and long multiplication. So, I mean, and that makes you not as smart, when you use tools like this. But, here's what I think that you'll agree with me on. And you and I have discussed this privately many times. I think that this is what's going to happen anyway. I mean, this genie is out of the bottle and it ain't going back in. AI is going to become a part of everybody's life. Everybody hearing this, even if they think it's not going to, it probably already is.
It actually already is a part of people's lives. They just don't know it. It's pretty much, it's been implemented in everything that you use in some form, even in a more rudimentary form as it's been developed to get better and better and better. But we've been using it all along.
I'll tell you something else too. I've thought of this a lot. Back in the day when the internet came along and you could have bought cars.com, for $10 or housing.com, real estate. You know what I'm saying? You could have bought, and I didn't see this coming. I mean, who knew? Who knew that the internet was going to change everything?
Right.
And it was the same thing. The smartphone. I had no idea. I mean, it was a phone. I've been used to carrying a phone. I didn't know smartphones were going to change everything. I didn't understand it was a computer in my pocket. I thought it was just a way to talk on the phone. And so the point of that is that this time, I'm not going to miss this. I think there is a paradigm shift coming, and I'll be damned if I'm not going to invest in it. Right. I think this is an opportunity for anybody.
I think so
and
too.
Everybody
I think so
to
too.
Be investing. Do you agree?
I agree, and I think we need to figure out how do we smartly invest in it. And the reason why I say that is because of this. And I'll just say this one thing, and then we'll move on to all the things we should invest in. Right now, these big companies, we're talking OpenAI, we're talking Microsoft, we're talking Amazon, all these guys, they are literally, I think it's they're spending between $30 and $60 billion to get this stuff off the ground.
A year.
And from what I've read, their ROI is not there with the expense, right? So they're not making any money yet. They're buying the Nvidia GPUs, they're building the infrastructure. Now they're getting to the point where they have to buy nuclear facilities to freaking run these systems, right? This is a lot of money they're blowing, and they haven't made any money yet off of it. Meanwhile, the end user, which is you and me, it's cheap for us to buy the stuff that they're building and use it in our own business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the cost for you is negligible, right? And
Yeah.
yet your
Very,
returns are
very
great,
low.
right? So in that investment scheme, I'm wondering, like, okay, so if I've got the big guys spending a lot of money but not making any money, and I've got the little guys spending very little money, but all of a sudden we have major growth. Like I'm on YouTube, I'm watching all these little coders. Anybody who was a coder who's like 25, 35, 40, this is a new world for them. They're making money hands over fist, building all these little apps, building all these little things, building
Yeah.
tools for companies and everything like that. So my big question is should we be investing in these big companies or should we be investing in the little guy?
I think always the big companies first.
Okay.
I mean, let's do this.
Okay.
The title of our podcast is 5 Reasons You Should Be Investing in AI and 5 Ways to Do It. So let's go down the list of 5 reasons you should be investing in AI. And one we've already touched on, a couple probably actually, but it's growing. It's growing huge and it's growing fast.
Yep.
And so obviously you want to be invested in an industry segment that's growing. And this one certainly is, as you just said, investing $60 billion. And I think it's more than that. I mean, I think Microsoft is going to invest $30 billion. I don't know, whatever. These companies are going whole hog into this. This is a growing business and it's going to get bigger. Number 2, AI is revolutionizing everything, every industry. You do video, I do print.
You're talking material science, bioscience. And let's not talk about, we're talking about a lot of different things here. We're talking about not only large language models, which are helping out a lot of things with writing and things like that, but then there's narrow AI, which those things are trained on very specific things like in medical, like they want to train for breast cancer and only breast cancer. They're the models are only focusing on that and they're doing amazing things there. And so you extrapolate that through all businesses, whether it's data, sales, whatever.
Aaron, you know what? Just today, last night, I was reading an article. We live in Fort Lauderdale. And in the Sun Sentinel, the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel had an article. They're actually using AI right now. They're studying traffic patterns because here's the way they used to be able to improve the safety of an intersection. They'd wait for a wreck to happen. Then they would go and try to reconstruct the accident. And then they would try to figure out why the wreck happened, if there's anything they could do to make the intersection safer. What they're doing now with AI is they're studying the traffic. They're putting it at corners where there have been problems, a camera, and they're recording all the traffic, all the pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, car traffic. And then 6 months from now, the AI is going to tell them, without having to have an accident first, it's going to tell them how they can make these intersections more safe. So whether you know it or not, AI is invading every single part of your life right now. Right. And it's going to get more so, even if you don't use it directly. Right. You are using it.
Yeah, and it's slow. It's got some pullbacks. Like McDonald's implemented it to answer people's drive-through menu. You go up to the drive-through, you ask the AI, I'd like to order this, this, and this. And social media went on a spree of showing how McDonald's AI was screwing up. So McDonald's pulled the whole AI drive-through ordering in June of 2024. And it says this is not working out for us. And
it does screw up.
It does screw up. And there's a lot of companies that are kind of, they implement it, they use it, they find out it's not working, they're pulling the plug. And there's probably going to be a lot of yin and yang like that until it gets better.
But do you remember back in the day when we first started using personal computers, the blue screen of death?
Yep.
Computers were a bitch to use in the early days. Yep. I remember calling friends of mine who were computer nerds and asking them, how the hell do I get out of this situation with my computer? They're so much more dependable now. And I think obviously the same thing is going to be true of AI. I could be wrong. It could be that everybody jettisons it, but I think it's going to get better and better and better. Yeah. Reason number 3 that you want to be investing in AI is the high demand. As we've just been pointing out, everybody's going to use this. And the companies that develop it, what do you want? What business is there better when you're investing in the stock or investing in a company than one that is using these products? This is just crazy not to.
Right.
Number 4, strong support from government. Of course, government's going to use AI. They're going to use it in any number of ways. I just mentioned one, as a matter of fact, and also, of course, the defense industry is going to be all about it because. If you don't have this stuff developed for your drones or whatever, the enemy's going to.
Right.
So that means there's huge demand from government for
and luckily
AI.
Right now, America is number one. We're leading the pack in AI, and we're
So
trying to keep it that way. We're trying to keep
the
it that way.
Chinese are right behind us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fifth reason you want to be investing in AI is that it's the foundation of future technologies. As you mentioned too, AI is going to help us do things faster and more. Let me give you an example. My wife is. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that. I mean, I think I was going to say right after 6, I was going to say the other reason we want to invest now is speed, because what I was going to say is, as this technology unfolds, and as has unfolded in the past few years, you can see that it's insanely exponential. Because the speed went from just, from spell checking. Now we're up to agents being able to actually, act like human beings and be able to actually do work for you, which was not thought of. And we thought it was going to be a few years away from that. And we're already there now. And the next generation of that is going to be what they call general intelligence, which means it's you and me having a companion at this point,
Yeah.
And then it goes on from there, and it goes into super intelligence, goes on to self-awareness, it goes on to transcendent, then, whatever, blah, 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 these other, scientific things. But that exponential amazing growth, if you don't get in, you're going to be left behind.
Yep.
They're saying that they're probably going to be either general intelligence by this year to 2030. That's quick. Because after that, it starts helping you build better materials. It starts helping you with biology. It starts helping you with all kinds of things. And it starts bringing humanity up very fast.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to get faster and faster and faster. And frankly, another reason that you should be investing in AI, it's fascinating. It's amazing, the stuff that's going on, or at least the stuff that's on the horizon. And as you said, this isn't horizon now that's 5 years away, because this is learning exponentially. It's a horizon that's right over there. I mean, it's just ahead.
Right.
And so I think you absolutely positively, have to understand AI and what it's going to do to society,
right,
what it's going to do for the world, really.
Right.
And B, you got to put some money behind this. I think so anyway.
You want to hear something kind of spooky? Just kind of like what Einstein did to general relativity. He found, E equals mc squared, which kind of was a fundamental of relativity. Didn't help us, bridge quantum mechanics with it or anything, but it's pretty fundamental. And I was listening to a podcast with the Google, I forget the guy's name, but he was kind of one of the designers of Gemini. And he said, we've gotten to the point where we've fed AI all the information of the world, everything, every piece of knowledge we have. There's no more. We're at peak. We're at peak knowledge with AI. We've shoved everything into it. So across the board, everybody's at peak. There's no more to learn. So now what they're trying to do is they're trying to find the E equals mc squared of language. They're trying to figure out what's the equation of thought, so that these AIs thought can now start to think for themselves and start to understand what the thought process is and what thinking actually is. That was just kind of spooky.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
I feel like we should smoke a joint and talk about that. Okay, let's talk now about how you can invest in AI. I bought, and I've mentioned on this podcast several times, I bought Nvidia during the pandemic. I put 10 grand in it. As we sit here, it's worth $270,000. So Nvidia is the king of AI because they produce the chips that allow these computers to figure out, in order to make these large language models. So Nvidia is the foundation.
Right. When you hear people spending, $30 billion a year, they're spending part of that on Nvidia.
That's exactly right. They're buying chips from Nvidia.
Yeah.
So Nvidia is a stock that I own. Also, but if you can think about just about any stock, Microsoft is huge. In fact, they're one of the biggest investors, if not the biggest investor, in ChatGPT, which was one of the first AI tools. So they're big into it. Meta, Facebook, they're huge into it too, because they're using AI to make their ads more efficient and other things that makes Facebook run better. And so that's going to make it more appealing to people, and as a result, I bought that stock for $90 and now it's $600. Now I'm going to ask you something too in a minute, but in fact, I'll just ask you now, do you think the train's already left the station? Do you think it's too late? Because,
No.
I mean, obviously we know the stock market is a discounting mechanism. In other words, it's looking in the future.
Right.
And maybe it's already looking at what's going to happen to AI 5 years from now, and it's already priced into these stocks. What do you think? Would you be a buyer here?
Well, that's why I kind of brought that question up in the beginning of the show. I said, these guys are spending a lot of money on infrastructure. And I was wondering, if they don't show a return on investment, is there going to be a pullback? And it seems like any small thing could be a pullback. I mean, there's some few outliers out here, and because there's so far, the PE ratio is so far. What if some hackers get really smart, start hacking these AIs, and start descrambling everything? That could be a huge dent.
I'd be investing in security stocks too, online security stocks.
And when I was reading for this podcast, that is actually the biggest concern of all of them. And let me tell you something. The other thing that's interesting about this is that all of these companies that are AI, Accenture, Amazon, Apple, Bank of America, Collex, Citigroup, Commonwealth, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, iHeartRadio, JP Morgan, Microsoft, Northrop, Samsung, Spotify, Verizon, Wells Fargo, none of them allow any of their employees to use AI.
That's interesting. In any context whatsoever?
In any context whatsoever, they're not allowed to use it.
That's odd to me.
Yeah. And because their main concern is security. They're worried that because this thing it's so brand new and is built at such a rapid pace, they're not sure what the flaws are yet, that there could be a security issue where somebody could get in.
Well, are you suggesting, Aaron, this is about investing here? Yeah. Okay. Are you suggesting because of these potential problems that you shouldn't be investing in AI? I'm not clear on what your point is.
I'm saying is like, I'm worried about telling people how to invest in this. And I will say, like, okay, is this a .com where everybody's going, whoa, this is so amazing. It's happening so fast and so forth. We don't know what the problems are yet because it's being built so fast. And there could be a pullback before it's fixed and becomes the revolutionary thing that we have.
Well, it's possible. I mean, certainly this is we have a volatile stock market these days anyway, and certainly there are going to be pullbacks in the stock market. But here's what I would do if I were an investor. Wait, I am an investor. I've owned a lot of these companies for years, okay, including Nvidia. I mean, they weren't about AI then when I bought them in 2021 or whenever that was. But anyway, I'd buy a piece here. I'd buy something here. I'd buy an ETF here, actually. Let's talk about ETFs. Okay. An ETF, for those of you who don't know, is just a bunch of stocks put in a package. So like a mutual fund, you're buying a slice of a whole bunch of companies rather than putting all your eggs in one basket. Right. And there are tons of ETFs having to do with AI. A couple that AI suggested to me, one was Global X Robotics and Artificial Intelligence, and one was the ARC, Autonomous Technology and Robotics ETF. I'm not a big fan of ARC. Yeah. But anyway, if you go to your favorite AI client and you say to it, tell me the best ETFs to invest in AI, or you can even Google it, whatever, and then pick out an ETF and put a little money in it and be ready for a pullback so you can buy more. Now, when I bought Nvidia in 2021, I put 10 grand in it, and I wanted to put in 20, but I was waiting for it to pull back. It did not pull back. If it did, I'd have bought another 10 grand worth, and now instead of having $250,000, I'd have $500,000 profit in it. So be aware that the pullback you're waiting for may never come. Is my point.
Okay, I got a question for you on that.
Yes.
So I'm going to put this in the description, this link. So I went to etfdb.com, whatever. It's basically got a list of every AI ETF out there. Uh-huh. Now, a couple of questions. Should you care about the what's it called, the expense ratio on these?
Absolutely.
And should you care about how many assets are under management? Because it's got everything from like 19 million down to 1 million in all of these ETFs.
You mean billion?
This one, yeah, basically, yeah.
I mean, I would be less than concerned about the amount of assets under management as I would be the fees. So look at the fees, but look at the performance too. Now, obviously, I hope everybody realizes that past performance is not indicative of future performance, but these are the kind of things I look at. And by the way, let me give you another tip here real quick too, Aaron. If you want to buy an individual stock, one of the things I've done in the past is I've gone to these ETFs, because an ETF, as I said, is a portfolio of stocks, but they have to tell you what they have in their portfolio. And so you can see the top 10 holdings of these ETFs. So if you want to just buy an individual stock, you could be looking at the makeup of these ETFs and buying their most popular stocks within those ETFs. And you could compare, you look at 10 of them, and you can see this stock's in every single one of these things. That might be a good stock.
Right.
So I would look at ETFs, and you know what else you can do? You can ask AI. You can ask Chat GPT, and you folks listening, you can do this at home. I mean, just just look up Chat GPT, go on there and ask it, I want to buy an AI ETF. Which one's the best? And tell me why it's the best. This demonstrates why AI is so cool. It will do that. It will tell you. And then don't take it at face value. AI can and does make mistakes, but at least it gives you a foundation for some research.
Okay. And how about small caps? I know you mentioned those every once in a while. Does that actually mean smaller companies? Now, if AI is helping all of these small companies out and it doesn't cost them much to do this, and they're, who knows, getting rid of, 5 employees and using AI to replace them, does that help that out at all?
Well, I mean, sure, of course. I mean, this is a whole shift of our civilization practically, and I don't want to oversell it, but I mean, if you're a small company and you've got 10 employees and you can get by with 5 because of AI, or let's say let's not be so fatalistic and say that our 10 employees can now do the work of 20. And obviously we're more profitable now. So sure, this is a rising tide that should lift all boats, including small boats, right? But if I'm going to invest in individual stocks, I'm probably going to, and remember, I'm 69 years old. I don't really want to gamble on little companies. Right. I want to invest in big companies with big moats. In other words, a company that's dominating its field. Nobody's catching up with Nvidia, not in the near future. That's the kind of company that I want to invest in. But generally speaking, if you can find a small cap, you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck, right? It's just more risky.
Right. Now, I was looking at something like iShares, and they have a lot of assets under management. So they seem to have a gamut of a whole lot of different industries. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at a lot of the other ETFs that were AI ETFs, and they seem to really be focused on the technology. But I know that we just talked about how it's going to affect material science and healthcare and things like that.
Biology, yeah.
Yeah. So do we also look at those as a separate thing? Like, even though they're not an AI ETF, but we're actually just going, okay, well, who's the who and all of these things? I mean, what ETFs would those be? I mean, you probably don't know offhand.
I would look at a few. I mean, yes, I think biotech is a great field too, almost as exciting as AI. Because biotech is going to use AI. And now, gene splicing used to be a $500,000 machine. Now it's a $20,000 machine.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that the other night.
Yeah. The leaps that are going on in these fields, biotech and artificial intelligence, is astounding. I mean, it's happening really fast. And I really think you need to be a part of it. So I would totally look at a biotechnology ETF too. And biotech, by the way, has been pretty hammered. Unlike the Microsofts, I also own I own Lilly and I own Amgen. Amgen has gone down, but I would get an ETF because the biotech industry has been kind of hammered.
Why is that? Is it lawsuits and stuff? Is that why?
What's that?
Is it lawsuits?
It's just out of favor. It happens because all the money's going into AI, and biotech hasn't really caught up yet.
So that's a little secret. It seems like you just plugged in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, anyone who watches CNBC would know this, or if you just follow the biotech industry, it was a hard place to make money last year, and it's probably going to be a better place to make money this year. But I would little bits in several different ETFs going to give you nice diversification.
Okay, so do you have any percentages? Okay, so let's say like you said, the market is kind of oversold in one sector, and you want to start investing now. You want to be protective in case there's any kind of catastrophic stuff that comes through. What would be the percentage of this, percentage of that? Like, how much percentage would you put into like a healthcare ETF versus the magnificent, was it called the
Magnificent Seven? Well,
yeah.
And remember, I said biotech, not healthcare.
Okay.
That's a different thing. But what I would probably do here, and in fact, I'm going to start doing this myself, and I haven't. Let's start dollar cost averaging into some of this stuff. Okay, if you've got $1,000 And now I'm going to assume that this is investable money that you don't need for 5 years. Okay. Maybe it's
Right.
in your IRA or 401k or something like that. If you have access to these ETFs, start putting in $100 a month into an AI ETF. And one of the best, or a biotech ETF is what I was going to say. But one of the best ways you can ever invest money is with dollar cost averaging, because if something goes down, then you just buy more shares of it with the same amount of money. That $100 is buying 10 shares instead of 5 shares if it goes in half. And then when it comes back, providing it comes back, you already made a profit. So buying little bits over long periods of time, definitely the way to go. Even if it's a stock, or an ETF.
I agree.
And another thing too, there were 5 things that we were going to talk about. Individual stocks was one, ETFs was one, and there's venture capital, which is not available to most of us. That's buying companies before they go public, and that's there are funds now that allow you to do that, so you can look at that too. There are things accessible to average investors now for venture capital or private equity, they're called.
How easy is that? I mean, you have to have like X amount of.
To be honest with you, Aaron, this is a burgeoning field right now. Companies like BlackRock are trying to make public funds, ETFs, that little guys like us can invest in, but they have the same sway, they say, as these giant investors, venture capital people.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm hesitant because their fees are relatively high. And are they? I mean, and if you really make venture capital available to everybody, then I'm not so sure that it's attractive anymore. Because now all these guys are going to raise billions of dollars, and they have to put that money somewhere. So they might be making stupid investments. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm not saying not to do venture capital funds. You can look them up and see. You can ask AI, what venture capital fund can I access that invests in AI? See what you come up with. Then there are adjacent sectors, like instead of being so narrowly focused on AI or biotechnology, come out a little bit, buy healthcare, or buy e-commerce, because every industry is going to benefit from AI, right? So you could look at lots of sectors and more broad sectors. In fact, the 5th thing that AI recommended that you invest in is just the QQQ, the NASDAQ 100. I mean, just buy the OTC market, buy the NASDAQ with an ETF, and that way you're in all these different areas at the same time, and you're diversified as hell. So that's something you can do too.
Right. And this probably, like you said, there's probably no wrong turn that you can do in this strategy, because they're estimating 1 trillion, market value by 2030.
I have no doubt.
That's 5 years. That means it doesn't take much right now.
I have no doubt. And this is making everybody more productive. And I believe this is one reason why the stock market might be going up in general, because every business, and maybe that's an exaggeration. I mean, I'm sure there's some businesses that won't benefit, but generally speaking, almost every business is going to get more productive. And what happens when everybody gets more productive? The economy expands. Instead of GDP being 2%, it's 5%. And so the whole economy gets bigger, and anybody investing in that economy, whether through a S&P 500 index fund or a NASDAQ fund, everybody benefits. Now, remember, this is over the long term. This isn't something that's happening next week, but it's rare when I can see the next big thing. I miss the internet. I miss smartphones, although I happen to own a whole bunch of Apple and benefited anyway, because God loves a fool. Or even the blind squirrel finds the occasional acorn. But I feel like I can see this coming. I could be wrong, but I feel like this is the next big thing, and I want to get in now. I want to get on the bottom floor for once.
Right.
What do you think?
No, I agree with you. And I think at this point, from like I was saying earlier, when I'm talking about Google trying to find the equation of thought and stuff like that. A lot of people are saying online, like, oh, well, like Sony and the movies, they may have a lawsuit that completely disrupts the data. They might claim, like, hey, all of this stuff is copywritten, and we're going to take all the data set and tear it down and everything like that.
There's going to be bumps in the road.
There could be bumps in the road, but if technology gets into this point where it's like, oh no, we figured out thought, we figured out the equation, they won't need the data anymore. dump it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some scary possibilities here, which we don't have to go into now because we're really talking about investing. But, just like, hey, any technology, a drone can be used to deliver a package, and it can be used to kill somebody with a bomb. There's a seamy underbelly to every new technology.
Right.
I mean, computers help you write a term paper, and they also help ISIS form a group. I mean, there's really nothing you can do except try to keep a handle on the technology.
Right.
And so that's what's going to happen here. But I'm going to be a part of it. Now, again, I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. But I'm not letting this opportunity pass me by. And I suggest that you folks out there don't either.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, okay. This podcast is kind of for people like you and me and stuff like that. We're not the 25-year-old coders and are being brought up in this world, and we can learn it from scratch and start building a business out of it and stuff. It's maybe a little beyond us, but at least we can invest in it.
Yes, that is absolutely right, Aaron. We can, we are, and we will. And let's go ahead and close off. I don't know how long we've been talking, but I'm sure it's been plenty of time. So let me just remind you folks out there, if you like what we do, then do something for us. Follow us. Go to our home on the internet, moneytalksnews.com, and visit us. Sign up for our newsletter. Tell your friends, because we need more followers, and we're counting on you to help us find them. Aaron, you got anything else?
No, just like and subscribe us. Hit the like button, and that helps us out in the YouTube metrics and allows us to keep making more videos like this.
Do it. Hit the button. Okay, folks, you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you right here next time.